How are you, by the way?
Hmm. Today was a better day than yesterday.
Well, that's something.
Yeah. All right. I think we're there. I think we are there. So I am going to hit record. And now we'll see if you echo. And we'll see.
Echo,
Today
echo,
was a better day than
echo,
yesterday.
echo, echo,
No, I
echo,
think you're good.
echo. How
And
about now?
I started. I think you're good. And I think Thor at the door is there. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. We heart you.
We heart you. We do it like this. We heart you, Steve.
Why
No,
haven't you toggled that off? It doesn't offend you?
I love it.
Really?
Yeah, like it just like it lightens the mood. You know what I mean? It's like yeah, I like shit like that. I'm good with it.
That's so cute. Hopefully they'll have a Hello Kitty one and you could just go like this and then like Hello Kitty will fly out.
I like that. Yeah, yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. What's going on? Prosperity Now, Maceo, Jerusha, Denise, Amy. Hello, everybody. All right, what's going on, Dani? Dani's got her rose-colored glasses on, which means she must have nothing but good news for us today.
I'm only happy. Um, I am doing my best to stay neutral about what is going on here in Santa Fe. So I
Mhm.
spoke at the city council meeting last
Yeah, tell us
week.
about that.
So the crux of the meeting was a lot of people came to speak because the city has proposed building free housing for the homeless who travel here from all over the country because we incentivize it here and they get so many social services. So I was there to speak about why don't we address the housing crisis that's hitting the tax-paying working citizens who are actually giving back to Santa Fe instead of trying to bleed it dry. We have over 3,000 rental units that are off the market and being held for Airbnb instead of people who actually live here. So how about we boot Airbnb, we boot VRBO, we give those 3,000 units to people who care about Santa Fe, who are invested in the community, and tourists can stay in the hotels, which will help our local economy. Like, it's so obvious to me.
Right.
But they're all on the freaking take. They don't care. So, cut to yesterday, I drive to my friend's house in this, like, actually very nice neighborhood. And the plan was to leave my car there and then head over to the hot springs for the day. So I parked my car in her driveway, at which point a filthy homeless man wearing only a sleeping bag emerges out of the bushes and starts screaming at me and telling me I'm a fucking bitch because I think my house is better than his. And normally I can be pretty mouthy, but I was like, dude, I don't even live here. Like, I was just trying to get away from him. And then he got more angry and was like coming at me violently. So I turned to my friend and I'm like, I'm not leaving my car here. So then I got in my car and he's blocking both of us so neither of us can get out. Like he was really belligerent. So she calls the cops. The cops come. They said 90% of the incidents that are taking up 100% of their time are around the Santa Fe homeless problem. So of course, there's no one to talk to because no one in the city cares. So I call the mayor's office and I get a recording saying, due to high call volume, you'll wait 3 to 5 days for a response. And it's like, okay, you can't hire anyone to work in the mayor's office, but you have plenty of money to build free housing for homeless losers and drug addicts here in our town. So I made a post for the Santa Fe Community Board saying, here's what happened. And when I talked to law enforcement, they said that 90% of their calls are about homelessness. What do we think about this, Santa Fe? Banned, taken down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. So remember, like several years back, maybe it was a few or maybe it was several at this point, when Robert ran for like city council or something in Fredericksburg when he was living there. This Airbnb thing was one of the hot topics that was going on there because Fredericksburg is very small, much smaller than Santa Fe. Have you been to Fredericksburg?
I have been.
Yeah, charming little place, but very, very small.
Great St. Vincent de Paul.
The what?
They have a really good St. Vincent de Paul thrift store in Fredericksburg.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? I was like, you went to church? I'm like, what are you? Right? What are you? Okay.
Praise Jesus.
So this like it was something like more than 50. I can't remember exactly, but it was like a insane number. Like more
Yeah.
than 50% of the homes there are not occupied full time and are held for Airbnb or something like that, right? And so like I've heard sort of this kind of line of reasoning before, and I know like in Palm Springs, they're always tweaking with this, right? Like I think they actually like have greatly reduced the amount of short-term rentals that they allow in Palm Springs because it's a place that its entire economy depends on people staying in hotels and resorts and golf courses and things like that.
Yep.
And also for the people that live there, because it's not an entirely a vacation community. There are people who live there, and it is sort of disconcerting to have like someone different living next to you every day, right? Like that kind of thing. So they have
But I want to stick to that because that's really the point, because it renders everyone's neighborhoods unsafe. And a lot of people don't care because they own their homes. And what I say to them is that's fine. But if the house next door is Airbnb'd and they're partying till 3 in the morning, they're not invested in their relationship with you if you ask them to keep it down. At the same time, they're not familiar with your neighborhood. So if there's a car casing your house,
right.
the Airbnb people don't know that that car doesn't belong there. So it doesn't matter if you're a homeowner or not. It renders every neighborhood way less safe. Plus, it's like it's not people who are invested in the community, who are invested in having, harmonious relationships with their neighbors. It just sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I don't think there is zero place for Airbnb, but I think the answer can't be blanket for everywhere, right? Like obviously in places where there's very little full-time people that live there at all, just by its nature, like a ski resort or something, it does make like the resort, not like the city that's an hour from the resort. Like I mean, like literally near the ski lifts, places like that, it might make sense. Like I think that there's an argument that could be made that like, yeah, there's like some people who, like hotels are expensive and they just want to rent a room in somebody's house to stay when they're there or whatever. I think there could be arguments made for that. But
Those arguments are stupid and I hate them.
that's fine. But when we're talking about a scenario where there is no place for the people who live in Santa Fe to live because of it, like then like that those arguments can't be the arguments that I said were an argument can be made, those can't be the priority. Those have to move to completely backseat, right? And so and this idea that you go to the city council and nobody cares about that, like I can't believe that no people care about that.
No, people care. The city council doesn't care because they're all on the take. No, people in the audience were like, fuck yeah.
Right. Okay.
The
Right.
city council are all lizards.
Right. So that in these circumstances, like I don't think these are decisions that should be able to be made by city council members, right? I think these are literally these kinds of things need to literally be the like referendums or whatever a ballot on the an item on the ballot that people vote for, and what the answer is so sorry about your campaign donations.
Except we're under Dominion tyranny, so the voting is no answer in this state. So here's the thing. Do you remember in 2019 when I did that big road trip up to Vancouver Island and back down?
Yes.
Okay, so at that time, I was watching Los Angeles turn to shit and our rental market become like infinitely more ridiculous than it had been before. And I knew it was because of Airbnb, because people can charge way more per night than per month. And we can't discount the greed monster, the greed egregore, the greed pendulum that is driving this bullshit. So I drove all the way up to Vancouver Island and back down looking for better places to live. And I saw no, Airbnb has destroyed every single city it is in. I'm sorry. I don't see an exception for Airbnb. If you want to rent your house out, on the short term, then put up an ad on Craigslist, but they take giant fees.
Right.
Their user agreement sucks. They're collecting all our data.
That's
You
what I
can't.
mean. I don't mean that the argument can be made for Airbnb. I think an argument can be made that people should be allowed to rent out a room in their house if they want, or if there's, if their home is in a place where there isn't a problem with housing and they want to rent it out. And I'm not saying that it should be through Airbnb, right? Like what I think it would be okay if we got rid of Airbnb and Uber and a whole bunch of other
All
things.
of them. They have to go. And also, it's taking that's 3,000 um customers who aren't using our local hotels.
Right.
So it's just a flat out lose lose.
I'm surprised that the hotels haven't made a bigger stink about it than they have, right? Because like hotels are something that lots of wealthy people are invested in. So it's weird to me that there hasn't been more of what's going on in Palm Springs happening in more places.
It is weird to me as well. I think Sedona did something similar, but when I reached out to my own city councilman, who cares way more about telling everyone how fucking gay she is than actually serving her constituents, she just gave me some like throwaway, yeah, we tried that, that's not going to happen, whatever. And while they're talking about building all this free housing for the homeless, while treating our veterans like shit, potholes all over the roads, the obelisk, which was taken down by an angry Antifa mob, which the Weber, our disgusting mayor, told law enforcement to stand down, that area is still covered with nasty, disgusting graffiti in the center of our plaza. It's so trashy. It's so embarrassing. It's like the city has no dignity. You can't throw $1,000 at that to get that cleaned up in the past 4 years, but you have no problem giving free housing to freeloaders. Great.
I was listening for a little while I was on my walk today to Rick Caruso was on Joe Rogan today. I only got about 35 minutes in, so I haven't I'll probably go back and listen to it because some interesting stuff was coming up in it. But they were talking about the homeless housing scenario situation, and LA is another one of the places, along with San Francisco and Portland and Seattle, where they have incentivized people to come there.
Yep.
So like, the it seems like this as a hot topic like comes in waves and whatnot, right? And it is weird that like, I mean, like there's no normal. It always has to be something fishy and greed based or fishy and promotion based or something. Like nobody's like, let's like no normal person would be like, let's make homelessness attractive here. Like let's right. Like that's like one of the weirdest things to ever think. But like that seems like what some of these people like, you get banned for asking about it. And right, like it's pretty weird.
Exactly. And I didn't even take an opinion. Like, I made such a concerted effort. Like, here's what happened. What do we think? I didn't throw out an opinion, and that was taken down immediately. But the article that I sent you, which Bet sent to us, which I'm excited for you to read about the Obama Axelrod, like giant psyop, they break down like the psychology behind that propaganda, which was for the first time they targeted people's bigotry, and they gave people and like these parts of yourself that you're ashamed of, that you hate because you're a bigot. Here's how you could fix it by voting against your inherent bigotry. So
Right.
that's what they're doing with homelessness. Like, we're all disgusted by it, but it's like, because you're disgusted by it, we're gonna mind fuck you into thinking you love it.
Right. Or that you should pay to end it instead of like, yeah, I get it. Yeah. There was a huge homelessness problem here when we first moved back to Austin in 2021. And then at a certain point, they were mostly just gone, and I hardly
They
see
came
any.
to Santa Fe.
Right. Well, I don't think that's exactly what happened. I think they've probably been relocated to some other part of Austin, and I just don't happen to live near there. Right. And I think it has had to do with like zoning and places where wealthy people want to buy real estate and new people coming in.
Like Gaza?
as mayor, right. New people coming in as mayor or police commissioners or things like that. And that's always like they make a big show of like moving everybody out and then things slowly trickle to other places or trickle back in. And it's this weird cyclical kind of thing. I mean, what do you think the solution to homelessness is?
Stop incentivizing first and foremost. No,
Right.
so I'm full on libertarian. No social services. Get a fucking job. Go to Home Depot and like volunteer. Also, every place in Santa Fe does not have enough employees. So it's simple. Get a job. You know how the recycling scam is? If you put in your recycling and it's not all washed out and you don't take all the labels off, they can't really recycle it. Hire homeless people to clean out people's recycling at the recycling centers and take the labels off so they can actually be recycled. That is so obvious to me. Clean up trash around town. There are things that homeless people could be hired to do.
Right.
What do you think it is?
Well, I certainly like, yeah, I do think that we're like, I think that there's things can be done to help them, but that help needs to be conditional upon what you're saying. We have a job for you and whatever it is, and that money, and we're going to give you temporarily for 90 days this room to live in while you work here and save up enough money to put a deposit on an apartment. I think it needs to be very conditionally based, right? And I also like, I don't know what the solution is to the amount of homelessness that is like really based around like severe drug addiction. Like, I don't know what the answer to that is because I don't think rehab, the way they've been trying to do that stuff, really works. I also don't think giving them money for drug. I don't think, I don't know what the solution to that is. Like,
We
I know.
have to cut off the drugs. Like here in Santa Fe, all over are these signs with 2 pills and it says don't take fentanyl alone. They're not saying don't take fentanyl. They're saying get a buddy and use twice as much fentanyl. Like it's directly tied into the cartels and the fact that like America exists to push drugs, legal or not.
Okay, so sure, like stopping the cartels, I agree is right. But I know for my own self that like no one was gonna get me to stop doing drugs until I was ready to stop doing drugs. And for different people, drug use means different things. Are you for harsher drug laws or for legalization of drugs as part of the combating or cutting off the cartel aspect of it?
I think we should cut off the flow of these harmful illegal drugs into our country. And when you were doing meth, did you expect taxpayers to support your lifestyle?
No.
That's fine if you want to be a drug addict, but
Right.
fund it yourself.
Right. I mean, I was in a particularly unique situation that probably most people who are doing drugs don't find themselves in. Right. But that said, like at my worst moment, my answer was never like, oh, well, I'll just, yeah, that was never part of the equation for me. But when you say cut off the flow of dangerous drugs into the country, do you think that the way to do that is to more aggressively fight that? Or to make drugs legal and produced here so that there isn't this flow of them coming in?
What does fentanyl do? Is there an upside?
I think I mean, the fentanyl thing is like the weirdest thing in the world to me, right? Because I don't like, what ends up happening is people who are on heroin eventually move to fentanyl, or people who are on pills move to fentanyl. I don't know. I've never heard anyone say the high of fentanyl is better than the high of heroin. But for some reason, once they make the switch to fentanyl, they don't go back. I don't know. That's not ever part of the drug scenario scene that like I was in. And it's weird to me because like even in my worst moments, I was like not I was very careful. I was afraid to take anything from someone I didn't know or what if I was unsure about something and I wasn't really wanting to try new things. Like I had an issue, I had a problem, I wasn't looking for more problems, and so I kind of like stayed in my lane.
Yeah.
So that psychology of like I don't care. I'll just try anything or do anything. And if what I want isn't available, I'll do something else. That was never part of the picture for me. So I don't know.
I think if people want to do drugs, do drugs. If people want to live on the street, I don't know. It's a problem here because it's like the crime rates have shot through the roof. I don't think that homeless people should get free social services. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any, I mean, I'm for no government. So
I am too.
I'm for no government. And, so then the question becomes like, well, then what do you do with those people? Is it just something that should move into like charities and churches and NGOs? Or like, if there isn't that, then like, what do you do?
This is such a fascinating role reversal because usually you're the one whose perspective is no government, and I'm like, well, what do we do? What's the solution?
I'm still no government, right? Here's
the thing. Like, the weather here isn't all that. I mean, we're having a bizarre heat wave right now, but I don't think people would want to spend homeless winters in Santa Fe if they weren't being given a bunch of free stuff. So maybe if we cut off the free stuff, they would go elsewhere. I don't know. I have bigger fish to fry than to figure out how to help people who don't want to help themselves.
So because most of my life I've lived in warm places, that whether there were any benefits or not, there was always a lot of homeless people there because the weather was good.
Yep.
Right. And so like, that's like just cutting off services in that case doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So that's all. Like, I don't think I don't think it's something you or I have to solve, but I was just curious because you're focused on this right now, right? It's like,
let's ship them to Gaza.
Stop. Oh, no. How is ship them to Israel? Let's ship them to Israel.
Yeah, I don't have the solution, but incentivizing it has to stop. That has to stop. And giving all the free services has to stop because I see so many young, healthy people who, like, they're being incentivized to just sit around and do nothing and take drugs. And if the incentives were cut off, maybe they would get their acts together so that they could get themselves, cleaned up or get a meal or whatnot, but they don't have to here.
Yeah, maybe they have to make winter so inhospitable in Santa Fe that they just leave, like extra snow for the winters. Right. All right. Okay. Well, since you brought up Gaza, should we start there?
Yes.
All right. Would you like to start with Ian Carroll's perspective on Gaza or with Glenn Greenwald's reaction?
Let's start with Glenn and then we can go into Ian because that'll give us a little bit more of a foundation in case our audience is not up to speed on this.
All right. We're just going to listen to
this is the quickest way to pee out
hold on. We're just going to listen to the first few minutes of his reaction video. And here we go.
Good evening, everybody. This is Glenn Greenwald. Welcome to a special episode of System Update that is live. And the reason we wanted to do this is because we talked last night on our show about how President Trump had proposed a rather remarkable, extraordinary, stunning plan, to put that mildly, for Gaza and for resolving the conflict between Israel and Gaza. But at the time that we had gone on air, he had only revealed a partial aspect of this plan. He had given his press conference in the Oval Office. He then met with Prime Minister Netanyahu in the Oval Office as well and answered questions and basically said that his plan, his vision for Gaza was to remove everybody who lives there, the 1.8 million people, and we'll get to that number, which is very strange in just a moment, clean it all up, rebuild it into something beautiful, and then basically allow some of them back in, but have it be for the region. And we talked about the reasons why that kind of population transfer, forcible population transfer, the people of Gaza have made extremely clear they have no intention of leaving. They don't trust the United States or Israel that just destroyed their society. To say, oh, just leave for a couple of years and you'll be allowed back. Obviously, they were expelled from what they consider their homeland, which is now Israel, in 1948, and never came back through generations they've been wanting to and waiting to. So they're never going to leave voluntarily. But it was really only after that press conference with that press briefing with Prime Minister Netanyahu, did President Trump give another press conference in which he revealed the most significant part of this plan. And he didn't just speak off the cuff. He was reading from a prepared statement, which meant that it was actually a policy that people in the White House had concocted and created, which was not for Israel to go in and govern Gaza, as many Israelis, including in Netanyahu's government, want to do, but that the United States would go in and, as he put it, would own Gaza, would rebuild Gaza, would turn it into whatever he envisions it having, a bunch of beachfront casinos and hotels and golf courses and who knows what else. And when he was asked, well, the people of Gaza are saying that they refuse to leave, and the Arab countries in the region are saying they will absolutely never accept such a solution, he basically said, well, I think they will leave because who would want to stay there? And if they don't, they're going to have to, meaning we're going to go make them. And he very clearly alluded to the fact that the United States government is going to go there. We're going to clear out the rubble. We're going to disarm the ordinances, the ordinance that is there. We're going to get rid of the buildings that are precarious because Israel has destroyed it all, with the United States and the Biden administration funding and arming it. And so obviously, if the Gazans aren't going to voluntarily leave, which they're not.
You free dealers, this is Daniel Basildua, and I'm excited.
Oh, all right. Here we go.
And the question is going to become, well, who's going to make them? How are they going to leave? Who's going to force them to leave? And President Trump was making very clearly that he would do what's necessary to make them leave. So the plan is essentially 2 weeks into the Trump administration, not to focus on Ohio or Michigan or jobs and inflation, although obviously there are things being done about that. But now somehow the United States government, the Trump administration, is going to assume responsibility for Gaza, wants to clear the entire population out of Gaza, to ethnically cleanse Gaza of the Arabs and forcibly transfer the population of Gaza out of Gaza so that we can then go in, clean it all up, rid it of the rubble, and rebuild a society there, because it used to be there, but it has now been destroyed over the past 15 months. That is quite a remarkable deviation from the America First foreign policy ideology that President Trump has long advocated, on which he ran in his campaign. It is certainly a deviation from the idea that we have to remove ourselves from entanglements in the Middle East. He specifically heaped scorn on the idea of regime change or nation building, which is exactly what he was describing last night. And you already see a lot of Republicans like Mike Johnson, who, for religious reasons, is a stark and stalwart supporter of not just Israel, but a greater Israel, as they call it, which is not just the internationally recognized borders of Israel, but having the West Bank and Gaza become part of Israel, as well as members of Congress like Nancy Mace, who is trying to prove that she is the most loyal Trump supporter, saying things like, we're ready for a Mar-a-Lago in Gaza. So I want to analyze these events because of how obviously significant they are, without capitulating to hysteria or melodrama, but at the same time underscoring the seriousness not only of the plan itself, which, as we've seen with Trump, may not happen because he often offers plans that are part of a negotiating strategy, but even the discussion of this can have a lot of serious implications. And the whole idea of the Trump negotiating strategy is, when you say things you're going to do or threaten things when you're going to do as a negotiating strategy, if you don't get what you want, then of course you have to follow through and do them, because if you don't, that negotiating strategy will never have any credibility anymore. If you say, either you give us X, Y, and Z, or we're going to do A, B, and C, and you don't get X, Y, and Z, and then you don't do A, B, and C, no one's going to trust your negotiating strategy any longer, because you've proven essentially that it's a bluff. So setting up this plan where we're saying that we would go do this, we would take over responsibility and ownership of Gaza, we would clean it all out, we would forcibly remove the people who are there, all of them, so we can rebuild it and make it nice for, as he calls it, the people in the region. Just the plan itself is already causing reverberations in the Muslim world. So let's talk about a few parts of this. First of all, the Trump negotiating strategy is something that we do have.
I like how Glenn is like us. Like, he's got like
Totally.
his dogs and his kids are doing all this shit in the background.
Because
Totally.
we have seen in the past that he says things all the time, and then doesn't follow through on them precisely because they're only intended as negotiating leverage. He talked about imposing a 25% tariff on both Canada and Mexico. Didn't just talk about it, but implemented it. People went ballistic. And now it turns out that he ended up not doing it, in part because he got some concessions. You can question how many concessions he really got, whether those are actual concessions or not. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm just going to.
All right, we'll excuse him, and I think he said enough here. So, what he just described and what Trump was talking about, because I did see the clips of Trump saying these things, is essentially almost word for word Bill Ackman's plan for New Gaza that we analyzed probably 9 months ago, almost a year ago, maybe longer than that. And then prior to that, Jared Kushner's plan to rebuild Gaza. Like, I know it's impossible for the three of those gentlemen to believe that there are people and cultures in the world that don't find hotels, casinos, and golf courses to be the pinnacle of like, right, high culture. But yeah, so it's obvious that while we are trained to mostly focus on Elon Musk, maybe a little bit of Larry Ellison or Peter Thiel, a touch of David Sachs. We don't hear much about Bill Ackman at this point, but that was literally word for word the Bill Ackman plan. And Jared Kushner, though so far we're not seeing as much of him as we saw in the first administration, you know he's got his grubby little marionette fingers involved in all of this. And it's so we have him proposing Stargate mRNA warp speed bullshit. Yep. We have him saying I'm going to end taxes and do tariffs instead, but already backing off of that. We have him creating a ceasefire, but not so that the people of Gaza can peacefully return to their home and have it be rid of Israel, so that he can turn it into like the coast of Florida over there. You
forgot about the surveillance data centers that he's building.
Well, that's part of the AI Stargate thing or whatever it is. Like, I don't know, we're 2 weeks in and this is going smashingly so far. It's amazing how quiet all of the MAGA and the Maha people are about this.
They're doubling down on it. I'm watching this happen, which can lead us to the Ian Carroll thing. But the other piece is that Trump is getting all this money from his lawsuits with Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, but doesn't give a shit about all the rest of us who've been fucked over by them for years. Like, we don't matter. They're still running their same censorship regimes, whether they lie about it or not. But he got his personal comeuppance from it, but it continues unchecked.
Yeah, I mean, you can say, Kennedy did kind of the same thing, like once his, right?
But remember Trump, I don't know if it came out, I think it was the day after he was elected, he had that video about the censorship regime was going to stop, and it had all that dramatic music. And now Meta is offering free verified accounts to anyone who moves over from TikTok. But the people who have been giving them content for years, fuck the rest of us. They'll just continue censoring us.
So that's kind of interesting. I still I think I probably have a little bit of a different take on this than you do, right? Like, I'm for Wild West. I'm stating what I'm for. I am for Wild West. I am for the YouTube that we had 17 years ago, where not only did you have a feed of the things you were subscribed to, but you had a feed of the things all the people you were subscribed to. Like, I'm for let it all hang out there. Right? I want that. I want Wild West. But I think that there's varying degrees of what people consider to be censorship. And I see the, incoming regime, the new regime, as being like, let's let everyone say everything and we're going to scoop it all up. Right. But, freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. Right. And some people don't consider that censorship, right? Like, some people don't consider certain aspects of like, the algorithm favors some people and not others. Some people probably don't see that as censorship, so long as you're allowed to say whatever you want and not lose your account or whatever it is, or not get demonetized for saying it or something like that, right? So yeah, I think like and in some ways this
Wait, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, because you said we might not disagree. Are you backing freedom of speech but not freedom of reach?
I'm not backing it, but I see it as a different thing than like when somebody's account gets deleted, right? When somebody's account gets deleted, or when somebody like that kind of thing. I think that I'm not saying either one is okay, but I think that there's for someone like Trump, who's more of a bull in a china shop and not very nuanced, right? He's just cool with will let anybody say anything. And those people, the people who are the new people in charge, they want you to say stuff because they want to scoop it all up, right? And so like they're rather than, have policies that get you banned, right? They just are tweaking their algorithms into something that is, maybe doesn't favor you or I. And I think that
It's not even doesn't favor, it's actively works against.
right. And so I think that it takes things into this more nuanced situation that it's harder to build consensus that would convince someone like Donald Trump, who other than truthing and tweeting out things, doesn't really understand the intricacies and the nuances of how all of this works.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think he's being super snowed. In fact, I don't care for this person, but I was listening to Robert Malone on Redacted the other day, and he was talking about how he thinks that Donald Trump got played by Larry Ellison.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. He was being used by the whole PayPal mafia and he doesn't realize it.
100%. But he went into detail about with Larry Ellison, particularly how,
Yep.
right? And Donald Trump is playing with people who are his equal in terms of like business and finance, but he doesn't understand how their technology works.
Nope.
And so they're able to do magic tricks and illusions and tricks of language on him. And I think this even gets to the issue of censorship, because I think in his head, right, censorship is like when you get banned or in trouble for saying a thing. It isn't this like, it isn't this more nuanced thing like you bought ads and they, didn't do much for you, even though they took your money, right? I don't think he would see that as censorship.
Right.
And so that's a problem when you have that person in charge, because
Correct.
he's saying things that are true, but he's not really clear on like exactly how these things are playing out for the average person.
Correct. And then you have Elon there advising him, and Elon's his own snow job with freedom of speech because Twitter is so not free.
Well, he treats Twitter like his house. Like, you can say whatever you want anywhere else, but in my house, you can't say mean things about me, or you can say anything else, right? He treats it like his own little fiefdom. And it isn't really ideological the way he bans or deranks people. It's like, I don't like that. Derank. Yeah, you hurt my feelings. Not, whatever. It's very.
But what I do think whatever controls were put on my account before he came in are still there and have probably been tightened. And allegedly, he and I are on the same page. I'm not tweeting anything super radical. I mostly only tweet at like local New Mexican politicians. I have zero reach on Twitter. Zero.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could make a case for like if there is something going on in the background like that, what it is. But I think I'd rather maybe let's test out the theory before we say anything about it on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me share the Ian Carroll. So this is his response to the Gaza thing.
Let me share. Hold on a second.
Okay. Which, I mean,
Go ahead.
for so many reasons, it's such a horrible, offensive idea. But just in terms of how those identifying as libs are already on the brink of institutionalization, it's a horrible thing to do for how divisive it already is here. Like you want to, they were already flipping out so hard 2 days ago. I shudder to think where they're at now. Okay. You love it when you see us. It's your favorite thing. Okay. So Ian Carroll, the world's greatest journalist ever, unpopular opinion, there seems to be more to Trump's plan for Gaza than meets the eye. As I say a million times in this video, I didn't even listen to the video, I'm not necessarily for it, but I also don't have a better solution. And to all my American first homies, I'd argue that Israel's level of subversion of the US government makes actively dismantling Israel's global power systems an America first priority. I'm not sure it justifies boots on the ground taking land like this, but I'm not sure how else you do it now that we're at this point. And then you have everyone underneath. Oh, I guess I have refreshed it.
I have the other one that you sent me. The one that you sent me says the benefits to the U.S. would be incalculable. From the profits of rebuilding to the oil and gas resources in the area, to defanging Israel and breaking their monopoly on the global narrative, to having even more American military presence in the region, the list goes on. Not saying I endorse this reasoning, but from a businessman's perspective, plenty of economic and geopolitical gain.
I read the wrong one. So, what do you think about Ian Carroll now?
So a couple of things. So, like, I mean, I suppose there's one transfer that would be okay, and that would be just letting them go back to their homes in what's now called Israel, right? Right? Just let them go there, and let Gaza be a beach for them to travel to go to the beach or whatever, and send Israel to some of those other countries, the people from Israel, right? I suppose I'd probably find that at least I don't know, amusing or whatever it is, but yeah, just it's gross what he's saying, and I also like the main benefit would be the hypercube portal that that Israel wants to put the points of its stars around, right? And so who wouldn't want access to that? It's interesting. My dad and I had a conversation when I was at home the last time about when it comes to like governance, like let's say you're in the position of the president or the governor of a state, because of course the fires were going on when I was there. Do you think it is the responsibility of that person, the elected leader, to do what is in the United States or whatever state or cities it is benefit, or to do what is right, right? And we had a kind of a conversation around some of that. And so I think these are interesting positions to try on for the sake of debate and argument and trying to understand what someone is doing. And sure, I think there's enough evidence that we can say it's likely true that Trump sees everything as negotiations and business deals and he prefers less war than some other people like or are okay with, but he wants to make a deal and he's not really concerned about history of the people and like their family tied to the land. For him, he sees a nice piece of land, he's like, let's make it a golf course, not like let's dig up the artifacts and get in touch with the minerals in the ground and see if that like transports us back in time and we understand the way the ancients used to decode the star. Like that's not him. Everything for him is transactional and a negotiation, and the people know that about Trump, or at least they should have known that about Trump by now, and they chose him, right? So on like some level, like I guess some people could make the argument that like, people, this is part of whatever the mandate, I'm not okay with that. But we had an interesting conversation, my dad and I, around that. But we're watching in front of our very eyes the transformation of Ian Carroll, right, from TikTok conspiracy theorist and game stopper into
Zionist shill.
apologist for whatever the current thing is.
Yep.
Right. So and we for those, look, we did an entire episode basically on Ian Carroll on our regular show, wordspodcast.locals.com, right? Promo code welcome to words, all one word in capital. A couple weeks back, I think it was a couple weeks back. I think it was titled From RFK to TMZ, or From TMZ to RFK, or something like that, right? And what is going on with him, and you know, to what level is he consciously in on it, and to what level is he being leveraged for his natural characteristics or whatever it is. And I think this is an example of that, and it will be interesting to watch the way he sort of shapes and molds to whatever ends up happening. But no, it's gross.
And it also speaks to what you've been saying the whole time. There's zero dissent on Israel in that crew. Zero. Did you bring the due dissidents on the latest?
No, I'll go get it. Yes, we need to.
So good.
I'll go get it. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was like from last week, so I forgot. Okay, you
Yeah.
keep talking. I'll go find that.
Okay, do you want me to take us to the Instagram about the fires or the PayPal?
Well, since we were talking about all the PayPal mafia people as part of this thing, that your Ackman, Sachs, Teal, they're all good with this. They're all good with this Gaza thing. So let's stay on PayPal and let's do that.
Okay, so let me pull it up. And just so you guys know, PayPal put out a new user agreement. And I went through it line by line. And I'm going to share some highlights with you. I was also on the phone with them this morning because they have a whole new scam around it. Okay, so here we go. I downloaded the new privacy statement. And first thing I want to point our attention to is this was last updated on February 13th, 2025. So I don't know if I fell into like a different timeline than the rest of us, but where I am, it's February 5th. Emily, are you in February 13th land?
I'm actually on February 5th, and I know I am because today's my dad's birthday. His birthday's February 5th, and today's
Happy birthday, Dad. I didn't know he was an Aquarius.
He's an Aquarius, so is Carter.
Speaking of,
My nephew
if
Carter's
you'd like
birthday.
to get him a present, oh, it's not going to show, is it?
Oh, I see it now. Okay, talk. So
Aquarius's fuck gear is now available for your nearest and dearest. We have mugs, we have hats, we have home goods,
Okay.
all on my thread list.
I'll consider that because he's impossible to shop for, so why not? Also, it was Carter's birthday. My nephew Carter's birthday was yesterday, and yes, the second anniversary of my mom's transition date. So,
whoa, there's a lot happening right now.
yeah.
Okay.
But yes, I can't think of like even if like Australia is like the farthest ahead of us, and it's like 16 hours, right?
So part of me wonders if that invalidates this whole thing because I don't know, or if this speaks to like whatever different timelines they're operating on.
Did you ever see that? Like, this was a couple of years back, and I don't know if I said anything about it on a show, but you know how like when your apps on your phone want to update and you can go in and choose whether you want to or not, and it tells you a little bit about what the update is, fix this bug, that bug. Like one time Laura found on the YouTube thing, it was saying that it was doing updates to the space-time continuum. Literally said that on the fucking
Did she take
YouTube.
a screenshot?
I think she did. Like I remember, like it was. I think it was during. It was either during COVID or just a little before COVID. Because I remember we were sitting in the backyard of the house in Van Nuys when she saw that. I thought she was teasing. I thought she was like making a joke, and then she showed me. I was like, oh my god, it really does fucking say that, right?
Cuckoo. Super cuckoo. All right. So going back to this oddly dated thing. So I just underline the things that I wanted to talk about here. So we will collect personal information from you, even if you are a non-account holder, when you use our services, such as when you use Pay Without a PayPal account. So I want everyone to be aware, when you do that, they start tracking you.
Right.
Okay, so then here we go. This is categories of personal information we collect. Internet or network activity, interactions with our services, information about response time for web pages, download errors, date and time when you use the service, location information, such as your IP address, statistics regarding how pages are loaded or viewed, the websites you visited before coming to the sites, and other usage and browsing information collected through cookies. Biometrics. When you consent in the user experience, we collect voice identification. I'm not sure what that means. Consent in the user experience. Voice identification, photo identification, face scans to verify your identity and authenticate you for certain actions. Now we're going to come back to this because I'm like, how are they doing this? My camera's usually covered.
I think they have certain features, particularly if you use the app or there's like different things you can do with PayPal where you like enable certain processes. And then once you do that, then you have to do that if you want to use those things.
Okay, so we're going to come back to that because this is,
that's why it says when you consent in the user experience, when you say, yes, I want to have you give me a QR code instead of me writing in my password or something like that, like, or you want to do, I think that's when those things happen.
Okay, so they collect professional or employment information, including business information, job title, contact emails, phone numbers, and taxpayer ID numbers. Information you provide when you contact us, voice identification, information about others if you choose to share it. That feels really creepy to me.
This is like, they love this shit. This is what the PayPal mafia is all about. You say everything. You say whatever you want. Tell us everything. Everything. Yep. When we want to hear it all, we're going to let you say it.
Yep. Sensitive personal information, social security number, government issued ID, bank account routing numbers, credit and debit card information, voice identification, photo IDs, or precise geolocation.
Yeah.
Information on your device, operating system, platform, screen resolution, etc.
The screen resolution is like, how well can we mind control with our flicker rate?
Totally. So coming down to how is personal information used? Associate information about you. If you use our services without a PayPal account, we may associate such transactions with your PayPal account if you have one or later establish an account. So they're holding on to that. This to me is the grossest. Process information about your contacts. Make it easy for you to find and connect to them, improve payment accuracy, suggest connections with people you may know. By providing us with information about your contacts, you certify that you have permission to provide that information to PayPal for the purposes described in this privacy statement. So what I'm getting from this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that by using PayPal services, I am certifying that they have permission or that I have permission for them to get into my contact information to keep them from liability about it.
Yeah, something like that, right?
It's something super convoluted. So
sounds kind of like when they're trying to serve you with papers, they don't have to necessarily serve you. They can go to your office and serve someone else or whatever. It sounds like that kind of thing, like guilt by association kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
So then we go to, do we disclose personal information and why? We may disclose your sensitive personal information. That's the big stuff, right? Social security number, biometrics, as appropriate to carry out legitimate business activities allowed by law.
Yep.
What the fuck? Who determines as appropriate? Who determines legitimate? This is like a giant get out of jail free card. It's so vague. So, authorities. In addition, we may disclose personal information with the following categories of third parties. Authorities where the disclosure of personal information is reasonably necessary to prevent physical harm or financial loss. So this is preemptive policing that PayPal is doing.
That's what they're into, dude. That's like what they're obsessed with.
And reasonably necessary. So that means it's not necessary.
Right.
Anytime I'm learning this in my Law of Mankind class, anytime they put an adverb before something, you're fucked. Adverbs and adjectives just suck for those of us who just want to be left alone by the government. So this to me was probably the most disturbing. But then I did go through the whole thing. So personal information to partners and merchants. Personal information we disclose includes products, sizes, preferences, and styles we think you like. Now, here's the new scam. To opt out of disclosures or personal information to partners and merchants for personalized shopping experiences, log into your PayPal account and edit your preferences in the data and privacy setting. So I took way too much time to do this morning, and I couldn't find it. So I called PayPal, and she goes, oh, you have to do it in the app. And I said, you continue to assume that I have a smartphone when I don't. I don't have the app. So you can't opt out of it unless you have the app, unless, like me, you create a huge stink and say, no, you need to opt me out of it. And she ultimately figured it out. But this is the new scam, to run everything through the app. And if you're not doing it through the app, it's 1,000 times harder.
Right.
Last piece of disgustingness, we may disclose your personal information if we're involved in a merger, a purchase, or sale of all or part of our business or assets, including receivables and debts. We may disclose under appropriate data protection terms your personal information to an interested or actual, note the difference.
It's like, even if someone just shows interest, we can lure you. We're gonna, you know what? We're gonna tell you Dani's bra size, and that's gonna sway your decision about whether you're gonna buy this company or not. Yeah.
Yep. And then check this out. Personal information used for the ongoing relationship between you and PayPal is stored for the duration of the relationship plus a period of 10 years unless we need to keep it longer.
Yep.
So I could close my account now because all this is offensive to me, and they give you that option in the privacy, but they're still going to hold on to it for 10 years.
Or longer.
Exactly. So, I mean, you get the gist of how disgusting it is.
I get the gist. All right. So do we want to know what this is all really about?
Yeah.
Leads right into the clip I have
Perfect.
of Whitney Webb on impact theory with Tom Bilyeu. Here we go. Fair use.
Okay, whoa. Let me see if I can boil this down, make sure I understand it. Globalism is a much bigger move than certainly I would have thought, started much earlier than I would have thought, that has really fused governments together with these transnational corporations, that the play in this moment as you begin thinking about what is the end game reasoning for all of this, is to open new markets, to concentrate power in the hands of the elites, to really give people a way to control policy at the global level, but not having it be championed by the governments, but instead be championed by the private sector, so it feels more palatable that it's coming from the individuals. But ultimately, much of this is happening out of sight, that we are not questioning many of the things that we should have. The scandals would bubble up, but they would never be pursued to their logical conclusions, so that we could end up connecting the dots, see who the finite group of players are that are really moving this forward. To that end, you said something that I saw in my research that I found very interesting, which is, when thinking about Jeffrey Epstein, stop following the sex and start following the money. Absolutely. And that it is far more compelling what he did to prop up or collapse national currencies than the sex stuff. And that, in fact, the sex stuff may be being used by the people as a way to distract you the part that actually matters, which is the currency manipulations. How did I
I would
do?
add to that also, since I brought up Chinagate, that it appears that Epstein had some sort of role in that as well, because a lot of his visits to the Clinton White House in the mid 1990s were with a man named Mark Middleton, who was one of the key figures in the Clinton administration actively involved in Chinagate at that time. And at the time that was going on, Leslie Wexner, who Jeffrey Epstein worked for during that time, essentially took over Southern Air Transport, which had previously been the CIA-owned airline and was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal of the 1980s. Had previously been in Miami, and he brought it to Columbus, Ohio, to move cargo from Columbus, Ohio to China. And there were Ohio law enforcement officials at the time that called it the Mayor Lansky run because they felt like it was tied to some sort of organized criminal activity. And when you consider that there's also evidence that Epstein hadn't been involved with arms trafficking back in the 80s and maybe in the 70s to an extent as well, that certainly warrants investigation, I would believe. And I think that's part of why when most people talk about the Epstein-Clinton relationship, they tend to avoid the Epstein-Clinton relationship when Clinton was in office and focus almost exclusively on when Clinton was out of office, i.e., post-2000. And I think that is problematic and really needs to be looked at, especially, and again, local Columbus police wrote a report linking Leslie Wexner to organized crime. And it was suppressed at the highest levels of the Columbus PD. But that was the opinion of investigators working on the murder of his tax attorney, who was shot in broad daylight, like shortly before he was supposed to testify to the IRS about tax.
Most people my age.
Okay, that's enough. So the reason I shared that, just so people who don't know, Chinagate was the illegal transfer of characters from the Clinton universe of secret or classified or patented United States technologies to China. Right. And so okay. So the reason I'm sharing that right after what you said is that what she says there about stop getting distracted by the sex and focus on the money. So this is a huge part of my point, but I think there's a step beyond that. And I'm not claiming that she's saying focus on the money intentionally so you don't focus on this other thing. But once you've been sitting with this for a really long time, and as amazing of a researcher as she is, just by nature of the fact that I'm older than she is, I've been sitting with this a lot of this information and watching these people for a long time. In the 90s, which is this period of time she's talking about, where Jeffrey Epstein had a role fixing financial situations, crashing markets, helping people hide money, doing all this kind of stuff, before he really became known as the sex blackmailer, right? Kind of thing. That people are so seduced by the lasciviousness of all the sex stuff that they don't look at all these other things that have much more of an effect on their lives, right? And it doesn't mean the sex stuff isn't happening, but maybe, it's either possibly not happening as much as everyone thinks, or is happening as part of this greater thing and trying to keep the focus on that. At this point, we're 30 years down the road, and I don't think it's the money that is the most significant thing anymore. I think what we're talking about, all of these people who get caught up in Jeffrey Epstein kinds of scenarios, or who are part of this sort of weird PayPal mafia that offers alternate theories about the Jeffrey Epstein thing, they're all obsessed with data collection, right? And power. And when I say power, I don't just mean I'm wealthy and I have power. I mean nuclear power. I mean, some of them have all this green energy, depending on which faction you're part of, green energy, climate crap, nuclear power, suppressing other more exotic kinds of energy. They're all interested in scooping up data. And most importantly, and the thing that connects these two things, they're interested not just in the data that's in your computer, but the data that's in your body. That's called genetics. All of these people, Bill Gates, Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, they're all obsessed with genetics. They're into eugenics, which is a different thing than most people think it is. It isn't just about creating the Nazi Aryan race and killing off all of that. That's not what it is. It's literally figuring out who's got what data inside of them and using people as a resource to be able to power the things you want in this world, right? And so that's the next level of what she's talking about, right? The sex is a distraction from the money, and both the sex and the money at this point are the distraction from power and genetics. And that's
100%.
it.
Have you heard her? Has she even gotten anywhere near the conversation around genetics, ontology?
Yes. I heard from her about the relationship that like how Jeffrey Epstein was connected to Larry Ellison's taking over of Sun Microsystems, I think it was called, and like he had a huge health and genetic database, right? And so she's aware of that, right? And I think she's thinking of I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know her, so I can't speak. And I think sometimes I've been, maybe even unfairly critical of her, and other times I think given her a fair shake and whatever. But I have no idea what she thinks about when she's not talking about her books or her articles or whatever. Like when she's just playing with ideas in her head, I think she's thinking of the genetics more from the perspective of monetized medical solutions or targeted bioweapons, which certainly that's part of it. I'm not saying that it isn't, but I don't think she's thinking of it as like custom strands of DNA to power fusion reactors. I don't think she's thinking of it as part of like the real Project Stargate, which is like, like certain people are the key to certain like if you think of the person as the key and the portal is the door and you need the key to unlock the door, I don't think she's thinking about it, at least not in her professional capacity from that, because she's trying to maintain, a degree of legitimacy that is based on being able to provide documentation and evidence. And they'll gladly allow, like, think about all the documents that they have allowed to exist. Like, if I want to keep a secret, I don't fucking make a document. Right. So they're making documents about shit that like make for good conspiracies, but the things they're really interested in, they're like talking about not even when they're on their fucking yacht, because the yacht has technology. Like when they take the little inner tube away from the yacht to go for like a little dip or whatever, that's where they're talking about it. Right. So with what you just showed us on that PayPal thing, with getting into biometrics and getting into information such as sizes and personal information, I 100% believe that you can probably buy some sort of genetic testing kit or blood test kit or whatever, like through PayPal, right? And then they would have somehow, and if they delivered it to you digitally, the results, they could have access to that. They know what supplements you're taking. They know if they've taken biometric stuff, they know that you have some weird flecks of stuff in your eye, which some people would say mean that you're a time traveler and you can open portals, but someone else might say that you have a liver condition or whatever. Like they're collecting all of this stuff and they don't care about the money. Peter Thiel paid people to use PayPal. And over time, you had to give more and more and more information if you wanted the money he was going to pay you to use it. He doesn't give a shit about money. He wants to know what's inside of you. And he wants to make sure that if there's something that there's nothing inside of you that he can't have, or if you have something he can't have, then he's gonna, whatever, build a cage around you to make sure that you can't use it to whatever. I mean, I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but not very much, right?
Do you have a PayPal account?
Yes, I do, but I barely use it.
Yeah, I use it as little as possible at
this point. I think that somehow at some point I connected it to Netflix, right? And then like a few creators that I've been supporting since before there was any other way to support creators that they still get money every month. And that's it. Like maybe once or twice a year, like a client who doesn't use my website or Venmo or whatever it is will pay me there. But like I don't
Oh,
shop.
but they say here that they track Venmo as well.
Oh, interesting. Right. So whatever it is, I don't even use Venmo that much. I basically use it for the same things over and over and over again. I'm not expanding into new markets of things or buying new kinds of products with it or whatnot.
See, I don't think it matters. It's the reason why I don't have Instagram on my phone, because their user agreement says they will track every single thing happening on your phone, other apps, whatnot. I feel like at this point, if we have PayPal, they're just tracking everything. It doesn't matter if we're using it or not. The fact that we have an account. But I'm having Brandon Joe Williams on my show again end of February, and all I want to talk to him about is Novation, because as I understand it, which is very little, but Novation allows us to go back.
What is Novation?
So as I understand it, I'm not an expert, Novation allows us to change any contract at any time if it is not serving us. And I want to know if we can start using Novation for PayPal, for Zoom, for Meta, for all of these things. That's what I'm most curious to talk to him about.
When I type in Novation, the first thing I get is grid controllers, groove boxes, synths and keys. So this is stuff.
Yeah, because they don't want us to know.
This is stuff for making electronic music. I'm finding this in everything. Anything I look up, whether it has anything to do with sound and lighting.
Here we go. The substitution by mutual agreement of one obligation for another, with or without a change of parties, and with the intent to extinguish the old obligation. Allegedly, because they give us these contracts and we don't have a say, but they serve only one party. And by definition, again, as I understand it, I'm new to this, but contracts need to serve the interests of both parties so people can use Novation to go back into contracts that were never intended to serve both parties and change them. But this is what I'm going to talk to Brandon about.
Awesome. Yeah. My point also is that any topic I look into right now on anything, part of the returns have also returned me things about like things related to electronic music and like sound and audio engineering and lighting, which is a topic I'm super into right now. But I can be looking up like what you're saying. I can be looking up like some idea that you'd never think would in any way. And they will show me, oh yeah, there's a fucking new tweeter for a speaker that's named that too. Or like
Right. And I want to acknowledge what Laner's saying is that it's too late and all this stuff is in storage. And I agree, they have it all already, but look what Trump just did with Meta, with X. Like, I think we need to be squeaky wheels to turn, instead of everyone just acquiescing and assuming we're powerless. And yes, it might be idealistic, and I don't know enough about it.
Intention does matter, right? Like for me, like I find it too burdensome to like make a big deal out of everything. But like I'd say at like 1 out of every 4 or 5 things that bothers me really bothers me. And so I will be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And I will make the stink then. So it's like it's part of this, like just putting out there into the universe that like, I don't like this and I'm going to find something better. Like, I don't know that we can fight every single fight. But if you pick the ones that bother you the most, and I pick the ones that bother me the most, and other people pick the ones that bother them the most, like at a certain point, we're going to be like, okay, there's a through line here, and we need to start crowdsourcing amongst ourselves or supporting the few people that are trying to create the solution, right? I'm not for like, yeah, I'm just not doing like the things anymore because I like to engage in the world, but I want better solutions, even if it's a little like, if it costs more or I have to go a little farther out of the way or whatever to do it, I'm happy to do that because I don't want to have to just back away from the world completely, right?
Yes, and I also think, like, let's say I do a Novation process and I flip all this around and I talk about it on our show, and then Laner's doing it, and Michael's doing it, and Jake, you know, and we all start doing it. We can move the needle. Remember, there are more of us than them. We're the ones who keep their machines going. So, yes, it might be idealistic, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if we could just even gradually move more towards an opt-in or opt-out versions of a society where like you do something, and then if you don't like how that's going, you can opt out without losing access to everything else, right? Kind of thing. I think that's like it's part of voluntarism, right?
Yep.
Like if you have the freedom to choose what you want to associate with, and you can make a choice, and if later you decide you don't like it, you can get out of it without the consequences of having made that choice, at a time when you didn't understand what it was. So, okay, speaking of consequences for not understanding what things are, to update, last week we showed Russell and Keaton talking about Russell Brand and Shmuley. They followed it up with this little gem this week, and I have another thing to add to it when we're done here. So let's hit this, get the little skip ad on. All right.
We did a video the other day, if you want a detailed timeline. So you might remember a couple years back, right about this time, a couple years back, Russell Brand had some accusations made against him. Now, for a while after that, actually, all the way until April last year, he was talking about Israel still. Here, we showed this video in our previous segment. He referred to Gaza as a genocide. Then later that same month, actually, I misidentified the date in the original clip. So it was April 28th. He did this baptism that same month. Never mentioned Israel again after that. Never talked about it, as far as I can see. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I couldn't find anything where he ever talked about Israel after that. So by the time you get to December, he's in the absurd position. And this is what I'm talking about when I say you cannot be a serious commentator.
Notice the pink.
Or if you're afraid to talk about Israel, look, how do you do that? He spent 10 minutes talking about Syria without mentioning Israel. You can't. You can't do that. It touches on every other subject. So now the final insult. Scam artist and Kabbalist Russell Brand hanging out with Kabbalah Rabbi Shmuley at RFK Jr. event. What are they scheming? RFK Jr. has interesting friends. That he does. So let's take a look at that. It's a quick clip.
Come on, come on, Rabbi Shmuley. Go again, what the hell? Russell Brand has made me laugh. He's giving me joy. But I love that he's Bobby's buddy. I love Bobby Kennedy. We all love Bobby. God bless you. Praise the Lord. God bless you, Russell.
That Nazi salute's going around, man.
Yeah, I know. You got to watch the hand there.
Going around. They got to watch it.
We all love Bobby. God bless you. Praise the Lord. God bless you, Russell.
He looks like a zig hail to me, but all right. So he got so much pushback on this that he felt a need to say something about it. I'm a Christian. I believe that Israel deserves a homeland. I also believe that war and violence is wrong. That's what they call the old grifter two-step.
Yeah, it's a brave stance.
It's very brave. So let's see what he said.
I actually do believe that Israel deserves.
I know this is minor, but can you just go back to the post? I don't think he wrote that. He's so fucking smart and on top of his grammar. I don't think he would have written, I also believe that war and violence is wrong.
Oh, we're going to get to that. I agree with you. Okay. I hadn't really thought about that, but that goes along with what I'm going to have to say.
Okay.
Wrong. That's what they call the old grifter two-step.
Yeah, it's a brave stance.
It's very brave. So let's see what he said.
I actually do believe that Israel deserve a homeland and that the Jewish people have a homeland. I'm a Christian, so I do believe that. I also believe that war and violence is wrong, and that there is a general sense that the more powerful tribe or group have a greater responsibility to bring about peace in conflicts. So I don't know what that makes me, baby, but I tell you this, Heavenly Father, I pray for peace.
I'll tell you what it makes you. It makes you a pussy.
He's making excuses for him and his consiliums Project Rescue the Republic because they all have more power, so it's their responsibility to decide for the plebes how everything's gonna go.
Okay.
Because there's not just a general sense that the greater power has a greater responsibility. I mean, you're right. There is a general sense of that. But you've been able to articulate pretty well the very specific way in which that applies to this situation, as we'll get to.
Well, I understand, though, he's sending 5G necklace amulets to all the Palestinians in Gaza. So he is putting his amulets where his mouth is.
I pray that the people of Israel and the people of Palestine can live in peace. And if it is your will, Lord, it will happen.
That is what you call a profile in courage right there. So
gross.
some people responded to this, Blakely. I'm going to need you to not disparage Christianity by implying that Christian Zionism is Christianity. It's not. It's not Christ-like to murder children and bomb Jesus's birthplace, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, where was Christ born? Bethlehem. Where's Bethlehem? In the occupied West Bank.
Yes. Syrian girl, this is what it takes to make your rape allegations go away? Well said. More on that later. Empire of Lies. What kind of blackmail material does Israel have on this freak Russell Brand? One can only imagine the depravity. Again, we will get to that. So now this is actually worse than I thought. When we covered this the other day, I showed that New York Times segment from April, but it's actually worse than that. I don't know if this originates with this tweeter, Angelo Giuliano. I think it does. Russell Brand turning into a full Zionist bitch. In 2014, he was calling for a boycott to Israel, to a full support of Israel in 2025, despite the massacres, despite the genocide. He is following other traitors' bitches, the Alex Jones, Elon Musk, etc. No spine, no dignity. So let's see what Russell Brand said in 2014. I have never seen this. He called for an Israel boycott. Comedian urges big businesses that facilitate the oppression of people in Gaza to pull funding. Russell Brand has gone one step further in his condemnation of the Israel-Gaza conflict than simply critiquing the way various media outlets have approached coverage. Now the comedian is urging banks, pension funds, and other big businesses to sever investment ties with Israel or any deals that he feels facilitate the oppression of people in Gaza. Using Barclays as an example, he said the bank manages, quote, the portfolios of an Israeli defense company called Elbit, which makes the drones that bomb Gaza. The message they give us is the exact opposite of the reality. They're acting like they're part of our community, he said during his new episode of The Truths. But if we're aware of the reality of what they do, then we have the power to influence them. He went on to encourage his viewers to sign a petition on the Avaz campaign website to put pressure on companies such as Barclays, computer company HP, security giants G4S, pension fund ABP, and heavy machinery Caterpillar brand to rethink their investments. So far, it has amassed almost 1.7 million signatures of support. So, hey, I looked it up. It's pretty hardcore site. I think they were successful with Barclays. That's what it says here. Barclays win. So any idea that maybe he didn't really know all the details about this and he's got people like Shmuley in his ear? No, he's very knowledgeable based on what was in this article from 11 years ago. He understands. He gets it. He knows. But here he is now playing stupid, playing like he doesn't really know what's going on there.
There's a general sense that the more powerful country has just a general
I have a
sense
general sense, but as a Christian, I think the Jewish people deserve a home. All right, well, where do you live? Put them there. So, okay, so I put forth the theory in our previous segment that Brand was blackmailed. So I'm going to take a look here at the timeline and a little background here. Okay, so our executive producer, Suge Knight, did a segment with Chris Cuomo explaining an interesting practice that he claims Diddy performed on potential male artists.
Somebody will get their ass whooped. You know, that was me in those days. They used to have these guys, they used to call it the boiled egg test. They used to take a boiled egg a raw boiled egg. They have those guys pull their pants down and bend over and they stick it up their ass. The eggs break. They say they're not ready yet. They ain't put enough work in. This is Hollywood. So everybody want to go act like they don't know what's going on.
Hold on a second,
but
Suge.
you just look.
Suge,
You got to do.
I have never heard of anything like that. So if I haven't heard about it, just assume a lot of people haven't heard that before. But you think it's on video?
Let's stop for a second.
Go ahead, Suge.
Listen. Also, have you ever been to any puffy parties?
No.
You sure they had a long time to think about it. But if you haven't been in those butt naked parties, even some of the preachers been in those parties, and they wasn't on their knees praying for God. See, they were praying for somebody to have come real quick or something. But I wasn't there, but there's proof of it. But at the same time, everybody want to look around and act like something going on that wasn't right. It's the facts of life in the industry.
Okay, so boom. Boom. Russell Brand holding an egg, and it wasn't Easter, baby. It wasn't Easter. If you could give me another explanation other than what Suge Knight's laying out there for why he's holding that egg, please let me know. I haven't had anybody who was able to volunteer a reasonable alternate explanation for this picture. So now let's look at a little bit of a timeline here. Sean Diddy Combs investigation, what authorities found his home. So Diddy's home was raided on March 25th. As far as I could tell, Russell Brand basically stopped talking about Israel within a couple of weeks of that. And April 28th, about a month later, all of a sudden he goes through this conversion, doesn't talk about Israel anymore. Here he is. Oh, he's baptized. All of a sudden he's all renewed, right? Mysteriously, right after they raid Diddy's house, this guy all of a sudden converts to Christianity. Didn't do it after that accusation. He actually continued those accusations a couple years back. He actually continued to speak on that subject after that. But after that raid on Diddy's house, man, he stopped talking about that subject. Combs gets arrested September 17th. September 29th, he's out there with Jordan Two-Face leading the Lord's Prayer before a MAGA crowd that I was in that crowd. I could say some of them were into it. Some of them were skeptical. But there he was. Oh, Lord, and please, January 6th, throwing in his own little MAGA pen.
All right, that's enough. A couple of things. So you remember last week I said, remember when he was forced to make that hostage video with Brett?
Yep.
Okay. So what was the other thing that they talked about that would happen at Diddy's parties? They would take pink cocaine. Russell Brand was wearing this pink sweatshirt that was like, I've seen Russell Brand wear a lot of weird things.
Yep.
But I'd never seen him in pink other than then in the video where he's explaining, right, about Syria without talking about Israel, right?
Yep.
And generally when he all the clothes he wears are like Bohemian, Burning Man, like stuff like that. This pink sweatshirt that he was wearing looks like, when you go to like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, they have like the most generic plain sweatshirts so people can put like patches on them and paint on them. It literally looks like somebody brought him a plain pink sweatshirt from that and is like, you are going to wear this while Brett, you do this hostage video with Brett because the pink is the sign of your submission or your acknowledgement or whatever about what we have on you and about what you're going to do for us. One of our listeners after last week went and got a quote from said video, right? And I have taken a picture of it here, right? And this is a quote from that video. Okay, the very beginning, thank you, Pavs Poll for this. The very beginning of that Brett Russell interview. Brett, these are quotes. Brett, I know you've got a tight schedule today. Russell, prior to this, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. After this, I assume making content for my show. That would be my assumption. Brett, right. Well, you never know. Somebody is, of course, in charge of these things for those of us who can't keep track of them for ourselves. I think when they get shit on somebody, Brett goes around and delivers the news that they will now be joining the coalition.
It's possible. I mean, everything about the setup that sounds reasonable, except that he seems to be such a pussy. And you would think like that would be kind of a dangerous task, right? You're telling people they're compromised. You're telling people, they're going to have to do what we tell them. Although maybe he has, like a separate personality we don't know about. He just seems like such a weenie.
Right. But if you're working for the person that has got all the goods, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're working for the mafia that has collected all of the data, right, and has got all the goods, and they would pick someone who's kind of like nice and pussy like to be like, we can do it this way or we can do it another way.
Well, and I also wonder if he travels with a heavy.
He probably, maybe, but here we go. This is it right here. Oh, right here. Look.
Would you please share your screen?
Wrestling with God.
Maybe. Yeah, it was. I remember thinking at the time, because he is so fashionable, but I couldn't see the crest to see if he was representing something like super hip. Right. But it's very unlike him to wear something like that.
Right. Let's like look through a few of these moments here. That does not look
ice cream cone.
It's an ice. It's like an ice cream.
Can you see what it says on top of? It says something. I'm gonna type in.
It says something Florida.
Okay, I'm gonna type it in.
Which is where Diddy lived.
Oh, there we go. Remember, have you seen the pictures of like Ellen DeGeneres and Beyonce's husband wearing the like fucked up panda face sweatshirt?
No.
You haven't seen those?
No. I'm gonna make it smaller again and see if we can get a better image of it. Hold on.
It's just not his usual style.
Right? And let's see. It's 2 words in Florida.
Interesting.
Right? And it's pink and ice cream. I don't know.
I wonder like if there's some sort of like ice cream cone symbolism.
But I wonder, like, think of it, listen to that, like that thing that Brett said, right? Right. Well, you never know. Somebody is, of course, in charge of these things for those of us who can't keep track of them for ourselves. Can't keep track of them ourselves.
That whole interview was so weird.
I implore everybody to go watch that again, right? And think about like the Charles Eisenstein hostage video, right? And, like, I don't know. This is all just allegedly and for entertainment, but with the help of our good friends Keaton and Russell Dobular, I think we're putting together another a compelling timeline of suspicious starting and stopping of behaviors and activities.
Agreed. And I'm glad that Russell didn't let it go with the last show they did on it. Like, I really appreciate the timeline that he put together in this video.
Yeah. Yep. And of course, you had the point that Russell was there, Russell Brand was there all in white, right? Like he was part of the
white parties,
the white party, or for the Science of Identity Foundation, right?
So one thing that I will share is back in LA, I used to have a friend who dated Russell Brand for a time.
Yeah.
And she said that he had a sex demon living in his house. I have no other information than that.
By sex demon, did she mean like another person who was a sex demon, or that like this entity that you couldn't see but that was there?
Like an entity to which he had given his allegiance and to which he was being held hostage.
That sounds like the kind of stuff that Diddy and all them were into, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. Yeah. All right, let's go to the do we have anything else? I think that's all. Let's go to the chat room.
I had that little Instagram one, but we've been going so long.
Let's go and see if anybody Laner, thank you for the $10. Much appreciated. If anybody has a comment, a question, a super chat. Now's the time, guys. All capital letters, so Emily can differentiate. And in the meantime, I will roll back and see. Hi, Darren. Nice to see you here. I know you've sent me a bunch of emails that I haven't responded to. I will. My apologies. I see them. I mean to respond to them. I'm super bad at this. Let's see. Let's say I thought Boca Raton too, but it looked like the last letter on the second word was an A, PK. It didn't look like it was an N, but I could be wrong.
It also looked like something that was given to him, because I feel like if he had his choice, it would have been a size or two smaller and he would have cut the neck. So it felt like a last minute, here, you have to put this on type thing.
Like, remember when that used to happen to us at like GO, when it was like, oh, you're wearing this right now? And, or like, and I hated that. That was like the fucking picture day that we both hated, right? When whenever someone tells me what I'm going to wear, right? Yeah. I don't like it at all. No, okay.
I'm thinking we don't have any questions.
Someone say, Audra Johnson, please research. Okay, I don't know what Audra Johnson is. Wilson soccer ball was the symbol of that t-shirt Dani was talking about.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then Tom Hanks movie. Okay.
But there was also, yes, there was the Tom Hanks one. I've also seen a panda, very specific panda version. But yes, that was the one that was in my mind's eye as well.
Jerusha McBear says, oh, like when Kanye said, nobody's got anything on me. I'm the nigga in the pink excuse my language, pink polo. Right?
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm reading something, right? So yes, that's super.
You can say nigga. You can say anything you want. You are a free sovereign being.
I know my cultural programming still exists on some small level.
Patti Smith is allowed to say it. She didn't get canceled. It's the only word in the English language that we all don't utter. It's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anybody got anything else for us here?
I think we're complete.
Questions, comments, ideas to add to the pot? I think that's
Super
enough.
chats. Thank you so much. Thank you, Laner. Thank you.
Thank you, Laner. All right, guys, we will see you next week. We hope you all have a lovely evening.